I want to bring your attention to a website called jobloss.ai. And it's basically a website that tracks live companies, roles that are being automated by AI, where you can actually see real job, real data, real time happening as we speak to actually showcase you which jobs are the most risk and which jobs are already companies are coming out and saying, hey, we're actually going to lay people off because we're going to replace them with AI. And so I pulled it up this week and I actually want to walk you through some of the numbers that I saw, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And because these numbers are real, they're current, and I think it tells a story that we need to pay attention to. But before we dive in, I'm Elena, a career coach, talent development professional, and former recruiter. And in these conversations, we get rid of all the corporate fluff and I give you practical strategies that you can apply in your careers today. So let's dive in. So here's what we know from the data that we looked at today. So in 2025, so just last year, 55,000 US jobs were directly attributed to AI in layoff announcement, meaning the company said, yep, this is happening because we're adopting AI, right? That sounds like a lot, and this, but the really scary part is that it's 9x from 2024. So it's 9 times in just 1 year. That is pretty scary. In January 2026 alone, in 1 month, we had 7,624 layoffs that were directly linked to AI adoption. And a brand new study dropped actually literally earlier this month from Tufts University Fletcher School. And they said they released basically something called the American AI Job Risk Index, where they found that 9.3 million of US jobs are at risk of displacement in the next 2 to 5 years, right? And what's interesting is that a lot of the jobs that they were talking about, which stood out to me, are jobs that are actually computer programming, marketing, financial analyst, right? These are not like low skill jobs. These are jobs where people have built years of experience to get those jobs. They probably got education, right? They got certifications in many cases. So these are white collar jobs. These are the jobs that, typically you would think they probably have a future, and they're actually the most impacted here. And of course, the other thing they kind of looked at is the other group that is really at most risk, which is 6.1 million workers that are working in clerical and administrative roles. So think scheduling, document management, some kind of coordination, right? These are definitely at risk as well. Now, it would be very easy for me to take these numbers and turn it into a fear episode. And that's not what we do. If you watched these episodes before, I'm all about what we can control, what do we focus on that actually can have an impact, positive impact on our careers. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're not going to try to solve things we have no control over, right? Layoffs are going to happen. Companies are going to adapt tools, and that's fine. We cannot control that. But what we can control is what do we actually do with that to make sure we don't end up being one of those numbers. In Washington Post research, what they actually found is some of the jobs that we're talking about where it's like high knowledge, they actually are high exposure jobs, meaning that they pick up a lot of different skill sets and so on. So they're actually also very highly adaptable opportunities there as well, meaning that you're best positioned to adapt because of the different exposures, the varied experience, education, and background that you bring to the table. So essentially, the future jobs are going to be those where you have your subject matter expertise, right? But then you also have these other transferable skills such as critical thinking and judgment and relationships and networking and so on. So these are the ones with combination of understanding AI and how you can apply it in your role. These are the jobs that are actually going to be very lucrative or the skill set, excuse me, that are going to be very lucrative. And that's what I want you to focus on. Because the other thing, what they're not talking about is all the other roles that are actually popping up since 2020 in terms of the jobs that are being created as a result of this AI growth. And some of those, let me share with you some of those. So some of those are like big data specialists, AI product managers, right? AI solution architects. So it's not all doom and roles. These roles actually didn't exist 5 years ago, and now they're growing at 80 to 140%. So that's actually a positive thing. And, essentially a lot of these roles, obviously because they're new, there's not a lot of people who know how to do these roles necessarily. So this is actually, looking at, am I positioned on the right side of this transition? How do I make sure to be aware of how my role is going to be impacted, but also if there are all these jobs that are being created, what are those jobs? How do I position myself and do the transferable skills maybe towards those jobs? That's what I want us to focus on. So here's what I want you to do. First thing, I want you to go to jobloss.ai, and I want you just to explore the website and kind of get an idea and see what's actually popping up in terms of jobs that are being automated. Is your role in those jobs? Do you feel like it might be coming your way? So that's step number one. Bring some awareness to where you are right now based on the job that you're doing. The second one is audit your task list. What I mean by that is that most jobs are just a collection of tasks that you do. So look at the tasks. Out of all the tasks that you do, look at those that are going to be automated by AI and those that are not going to be automated by AI. Be objective here. Don't put your feelings to this, but objectively speaking, is the specific task going to be automated, or is it going to stick around for a while because it needs a human being to actually do it? The last thing I want you to do is actually look at how are you going to build your AI in fluency now. So what are you going to learn about AI? How are you going to practice it and apply it in your current role? How can you play around with it? Start actually playing around with it. There's tons of videos, tons of information, tons of tutorials about different jobs, how AI can be used in those jobs. Start actually getting familiar and comfortable with understanding how AI can be used in your particular role. And a little bonus action, if you want to take it, is that at the end of the day, you need to make sure that what you're doing inside, playing around with AI and so on, make sure that your manager knows about it. Make sure you bring it into conversations. If there's like an AI pilot program or something like that at your company right now, jump on board and say, like, volunteer yourself to actually play around with it. I know a lot of companies are now adapting AI, and there's a lot of change that associated with it, and a lot of people kind of hesitant to play around with tools. Be a volunteer. Actually put yourself forward, showcase to your manager, to your company, that you want to learn, that you're excited about this, and you actually taking proactive steps to make sure that you're using AI in your role in a way that makes you more efficient, productive, which is what your company essentially wants. Now look, jobloss.ai is a wake-up call, and I'm all about awareness. I think we should be aware about what's out there. You don't need to be scared of it. You just need to accept this is what this is. And I think information and awareness is step one, and it allows us to then take power into our own hands and say, what do I actually do with that? And the reality is that, sure, 9.3 million jobs are at risk, but then also let's not forget about the, somewhere north of 170 million jobs that are projected, new jobs that are projected to be created by 2030. And you just want to be in the group of people that are actually doing something about that, are jumping on that train, that are not waiting until it's too late. They're not waiting when they're behind and they have to play catch up, but actually doing what you need to do right now to understand where do you need to be, what skill set you need to create, to build. How do you build AI fluency? Do you need to completely pivot? Figure out what is it that you need to do and the steps that you need to take to close the gaps between where you are and where you need to be. That is what I want you to focus on. You don't need to fear the future. You don't need to fear AI or the job market. You need to just take a moment, bring awareness to what's going on, and understand what actions do you need to take to drive your career forward. That's the confession. So if this resonates with you, if you think a friend can benefit from this discussion, send them the episode. I'm going to put the jobloss.ai link in the description, so check it out. And as always, my website, elenaagad.com, has a ton of resources and free kind of strategies and frameworks that you can use to build your career and make sure you stay relevant in the age of AI. See you next week.